State Representative Victoria Neave Criado of Mesquite, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So, we all know the news now that Vice President Kamala Harris, the nominee for president for the Democratic Party, has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her VP nominee. What's your reaction?
Yeah, it's exciting to see somebody like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, somebody who's a former football coach, somebody who is a rural public servant, and what he brings to the table, I think, is a really strategic and smart pick for Vice President Harris. I trust her judgment on selecting him, and just like what we saw here in Texas, when you had a bipartisan coalition of rural Republicans with Democratic lawmakers voting down school vouchers, for example, I think it's really going to take that type of coalition of rural voters to also help Vice President Harris and our new Harris-Walz ticket get across the finish line this November.
Were you surprised that it wasn't Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, which is the battleground state, which a lot of people say Democrats really need to win, or the same with Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, another battleground state?
Yeah, I think each candidate brings different things to the table, but what's going to be important for Democrats and individuals who are fed up with the Republican Party is really to look at what the policies that the Vice President Harris and this new ticket are going to bring to the table, the type of leadership that they're going to inspire. We're already seeing a significant, invigorated electorate all across this country on hour-long Zooms, making tons of phone calls, knocking on doors, and that's really what it's going to take. So, and now that the decision has been made, I think that really helps the campaign continue to move forward on an, on a upward trajectory and ensure that they reach as many voters that are necessary in those key battleground states.
I saw a photo of you with Regina Montoya recently at with Vice President Harris at her residence a couple of weeks ago. Tell me, how did that come to be? And
Yeah.
what did you say to her when you met her?
Thank you. So the vice president was honored to be invited to her residence at an event celebrating Latino leaders from across the country. And, I've been a supporter of the Biden-Harris campaign and wanting to do what we can to continue to shine a spotlight on the issues happening in Texas. We're honored that and just so excited that she is our nominee. And we have the potential to have a former prosecutor or somebody who has was a former senator and our current vice president who's ready to take the lead as our next president. And so, we told her that we're honored, we're excited. I had met her before when Democrats broke quorum and we were in DC. I've met with her and a group of other elected leaders several times with the National Hispanic Caucus of state legislators on various topics. And so we know that she wants to move our nation forward, wants to build a broad coalition, not take us backwards like a Trump-Vance campaign would do.
And what do you think the strongest issues are for Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to run on, at least for the Democrats?
Yeah, I think several issues like our economy, that's something that resonates across so many different families. The key issues that the Biden-Harris campaign or the administration have delivered on, focusing on our education, student loan forgiveness, ensuring that every family has an opportunity to access education, save for their retirement, and provide for their families, put food on the table, buy a house. Housing is a big issue here in Texas and across the country with skyrocketing prices. And so the Biden-Harris administration, and now we know the Harris-Walz ticket, has a plan to address rising home prices. And so they want to make sure that every family has that opportunity to make an impact, buy a home instead of paying sky-high rent.
And let me ask you, because inflation certainly has been a very big issue, how do you think Democrats best answer for that?
Yeah, the Biden-Harris administration passed the Inflation Reduction Act that had a huge impact across the nation, and I think we're going to continue to see that. They're very cognizant of the cost of food, putting food on the table. We know that those are real issues facing Americans, not just here in Texas, and so we know that they're doing everything that they can to get legislation and to pass policies that are going to make an impact on people's pocketbooks right at home. And so it's those issues, it's issues, like gun violence across our nation. We continue to see mass shootings, and so those they've addressed legislation and in a bipartisan way to make changes to our gun laws, where you still protect the Second Amendment, but at the same time you implement reasonable safety laws in order to keep our community safe. So I know that they're doing everything that they can. I'm very excited about Vice President Harris's pick, and excited for November.
What about border security? Obviously, a very big issue here in Texas. And how do you think that the Harris-Walz ticket will be able to discuss, given the record numbers of people who've entered the country illegally?
Yeah, I look forward to raising those issues also with the campaign. And we know that that is an issue that is important to them. As chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, we saw, last year, really an attack on Latinos. We know that immigration policies have to change, but they have to be done in a way that makes sense. Trump's plan to do mass deportations all across this country just does not make sense. It's frankly just it doesn't make economic sense, especially right now when I mentioned the significant housing crisis that we have. We have right now a significant labor shortage in the construction industry, and many immigrants fill those jobs. And so as we continue to have a shortage in the construction industry and many other labor industries, people who are ready to work, we need to put in place and comprehensive immigration reform. This is something that we've been shouting from the rooftops for years and years about the need to change our immigration laws so that folks don't have to live in the shadows, so that we can fill those jobs with hardworking folks, and at the same time do what we can to pass common sense laws. But obstruction, I think, is what the Trump ticket wanted, and we heard that when the Biden-Harris administration tried to pass the bipartisan border security proposal. I think there's still a lot of work to do in that area, but I have much more faith in Vice President Harris and Governor Walz than I do in the Trump-Vance ticket.
Last question. Are you going to be out there campaigning for her as a surrogate out on the trail? Have you volunteered? Have they asked you to do that?
I have been a strong supporter of President Biden and Vice President Harris throughout their tenure, and I will continue to be advocating for Vice President Harris to be our nominee here in Texas and wherever they need me, but absolutely want to do everything to ensure that we elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to be our next president and vice president.
State Representative Victoria Neave Criado of Mesquite, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.